we're underway here, Bill. Now, this is going to be an interesting challenge for these three because clearly nowhere to hide. It's basically a very long match sprint format.
Oftentimes, you think smaller fields must be an easier race, right? Not true. Generally speaking, it's actually a little bit harder. To your point, nowhere to hide. Somebody reacts. There's not a lot of people to fill in and close that gap for you, kind of create that bridging effect. So makes for a much more challenging event in its own way. So these three 17, 18-year-olds, a 15-lap race. Claire Kudlata is rider 145 with Adapt Cycling. She's coming to us from Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin. Edge Cycling, Lucy Speranza. She's rider 147. And from Sirius Cycling out of Carson, California, Chloe Patrick, rider 264.
This is a scratch event, and it is a national championship, so there'll be no preems. So we're just first person across the line at the end wins. Chloe Patrick up at the top of the rail, Speranza in the red and black at the stayers line, and between the two, Claire Kudlata. Patrick, the winner of your Omnium. Kudlata, I think, got a medal. She was up there.
Yeah, Patrick's been a very strong rider across some of her events throughout the week. Of course, Speranza, we've talked about her a little bit, but that cycling program she rides for, Edge Cycling, you know, we kind of associate that team maybe a little bit more with the sprint type events. A lot of very good kilo riders, a lot of very good sprinters, as evidenced by some of our elite men's sprinters that are kind of deep into the sprint rounds right now. But good to see that that program not kind of pigeonholing their riders into just sprint programs. They've got some riders in the endurance-based programs as well. Speranza, one of those riders. Not so much of a sprinter. She's out here doing a little bit of a longer race, a scratch race, showcasing that that program works with riders of all abilities, develops them for all different types of track events.
This is definitely being raced like a match sprint at this point. Speranza keeping her head on a swivel here, and Patrick now digging in. Patrick taking off here, and let's see if Kudlata and Speranza, and hold it. Chloe Patrick digging in into that sprinter's lane. She's put that head down. She's getting after it. Remember, she got a bronze medal in the individual pursuit just last night. And now Patrick goes up track with Kudlata follows, and Speranza now collects.
A good effort by Patrick, kind of testing the waters a little bit. That sharp acceleration put Speranza in just a little bit of difficulty, but Kudlata not really willing to continue the effort with Patrick, so both riders swinging up, coming out of turn two. Back to the little bit of a chess match they've got rolling on. Patrick riding smartly, kind of staying high on the board, so she only has to look over her left shoulder to see where her two companions are. Starting to pedal just a little bit slower. She'd like to get to the back of this trio of riders so she can kind of see what's happening a little more easily. Kudlata not really falling for it, trying to slow her pace down as well. She knows that if Patrick gets a little too far back, she might try and take a run at him, surprise him with another one of those attacks like she just did a few laps ago.
Dropping down out of turn number two for this next sprint. We'll see how long and if Kudlata and Speranza can get on the wheel. Chloe Patrick checking the shoulder one more time. Our young woman from San Diego, California, putting in that dig. Coming up and around. Let's see how long she keeps going.
All three riders are showing exceptional form, kind of getting down low, nice little aerodynamic position, good bend in the elbows, trying to get that back as flat as possible as they kind of chase each other one by one down the home straight here. 9 to go on the cards, Gabe. We are officially into the single digits.
Ooh, single digits of this scratch race means that we're in the business end of the scratch race, and Chloe Patrick goes up track a little bit to take a little bit of a breather. That gives an opportunity for Culotta and Speranza to reattach themselves to your leader.
You have to wonder if Patrick's just kind of toying with the riders a little bit. Each one of her accelerations kind of getting a nice little bit of real estate behind her, but not necessarily being chased down as much as she is choosing to kind of sit up and back off just a little bit and wait for the other two. But Patrick now kind of settling into maybe a little bit more of a steady rhythm, kind of keeping those gaps the same back to second and third.
Bill, dare I say, I think I can see some blue skies and sun in the final aughts of today.
That's like a painting or something out there. That's somebody's going to move that out of the way in a minute, and you'll see the darkness that you see over here. This is Trexlertown in the summer. Blue skies, I think, don't exist, especially when we're trying to race bikes.
They do. There's Chloe Patrick digging in. Look at that. 6 laps remaining. That's 2 more kilometers here. Culotta and Speranza now teaming up to try to work together to get themselves to the finish line.
It looks like those two riders choosing to work together, try and exchange pace a little bit. 2 is hopefully better than 1. Maybe they can make a little bit more headway. Speranza swinging up track into turn 3, letting Culotta come back onto the pace. Patrick, though, in a very nice low aerodynamic position, seeing 5 laps to go on the cards.
Culotta and Speranza are working well together, while Chloe Patrick looking steady at the front. Remember, Chloe Patrick from Carson, California, and Lucy Speranza from Center Valley, Pennsylvania. That's just right down the road from us here. And Claire Culotta from Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin. I don't actually know what part of Wisconsin that is.
Whitefish Bay, actually a beautiful area of Wisconsin. If you remember back in the 80s and early 90s, the old Super Week Cycling Classic. 2 weeks of daily criterium racing all around Wisconsin. One of the premier stages was in Whitefish Bay. I've done that race a number of times. Very nice little quaint town out there in Wisconsin. Not a bad place to be, I would think.
Yeah. Well, that sounds beautiful. Wisconsin has a very good racing scene. After Super Week, they're now onto the Tour of America's Dairylands, which Bill Cook is running. So it's nice to see that continuation of the cycling culture up there in Wisconsin. Chloe Patrick looking at 2 laps to go. My goodness, she's tearing through these laps. 2 laps remaining here for Chloe Patrick and Culotta and Speranza. Working well together behind. Speranza sitting in the draft there of Culotta. They're looking across the track. They see Chloe Patrick coming up in their rearview mirror. Let's make some noise here for Chloe Patrick, ladies and gentlemen. She's about to hear that bell for 1 lap to go. Come on, let's cheer her on. Get her to the finish. She's doing a great job. And there it is, 1 lap to go for Chloe Patrick, our rider from California. Coming around in the standalone scratch race event. She will win this race and collect another national championship.
We're seeing a little bit of cat and mouse for the silver and bronze. Speranza swinging up track on the back straight. Culotta not falling for it. 1 to go for those riders on the way through. Speranza getting forced into the lead-out mode. We'll see what kind of sprinter Culotta is. Getting a long lead-out down the back straight. Speranza maybe going to make another kick.
Here comes Chloe Patrick, ladies and gentlemen. She is your national champion in this event. And coming out of turn number 4, you got Speranza in the lead, and Lucy Speranza will hold on for the silver medal, while Culotta will earn the bronze medal in tonight's junior women's scratch final.
I'll say Culotta played that finish very well. Started to sit on the last lap and a half. Knew maybe she's not as fast as Speranza. tried to force Speranza on the pace, lead it out, hopefully take advantage of it, but it wasn't to be. So Speranza is going to be your silver medalist, and Claire Kudlata, your bronze medalist. So one more round of applause for our 17-18 women's scratch race podium right here.
Excellent work. Excellent work. Chloe Patrick, your latest national champion here tonight.
All right, we're going to slide our way right back into the Elite Men Sprint semifinals. This is going to be ride number 2. First up, it's going to be Sandor Delgado going up once again against Andrew Chu. Delgado taking a hotly contested win in ride number 1. I'm sure he would love nothing more than to make this 2 for 2, make his way into the medal rounds. Chu going to take the up track position up by the boards. Delgado down track.
All right, we are now rolling. Sandor going to be first position now, as Bill was just saying. He started down track and then took the lead and went immediately up to the rail. Chu opting to stay behind and then force a lot of peripheral vision demands on Delgado. So Delgado has to maintain forward progress on the track while also looking backwards to try to keep an eye on Chu. Chu really tempting here with this very long leash between himself and Delgado. Delgado did win the first rod. If he wins this, he will move into the national championship rod. If Chu wins it, it will push it to 3. There's your belt for 1 lap to go. Let's see what happens here. Sandor trying to protect that bottom side of the track, and Chu taking a big run at Delgado, then going up track and then down track one more time, trying to get every ounce of speed he can get. Delgado, though, is out of the saddle, trying to lift on top of that gear. He is into full flight mode, but here comes Andrew Chu up onto the hip out of turn number 4, and Delgado will take the ride, moving himself into the national championship ride, and Andrew Chu will be in the bronze medal ride in just a few moments. Give these two gentlemen a nice round of applause. That was some great bike racing out there between our 2 young men, Andrew Chu from this area and Sandor Delgado from Miami, Florida.
All right, heat number 2 up next. A rematch between Jamie Alvord, the winner of ride number 1, against Barack Pipkins. Both riders, of course, representing the same Edge cycling team. It's always interesting to me, Gabe, you know, these sprinters, they have the opportunity to do a couple rides. It's always best 2 out of 3 for the most part. So every sprint that you win or lose, more specifically that you lose, you kind of go back to the drawing board and you've got to figure out, like, what's my next move? Like, what tactic might work? Because you're trying a couple different things. Some riders might have a very specific go-to style, but eventually you're going to get it to a competitor that can kind of see through your tactic and can work around it. And so when you're coming into this ride number 2 here and you're Barack Pipkins, what are you thinking in trying to take the win over Alvord here? Like, what's going to work this time through?
Yeah, right. You really have to go through your playbook and try to find every element of surprise and opportunity to take on a rider of Jamie Alvord's caliber. Now, again, these 2 guys in the same kit, so they do train together. And as we've also spoken about over the past few days, when you're racing your training partner, sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. You know your competitor's strengths, but you also know their weaknesses. And so when you go through that playbook of strategy that you can take in order to try to make those decisions on the infield of what your approach will be for the next ride, oftentimes you're playing off of very direct experience with the competitor at hand. Pipkins is going to be your first ride first rider on the track right now with that white helmet. Alvord trying to get underneath, and he does. He gets underneath ahead of Pipkins, not fully committed yet, so he's going to come back up track a little bit, trying to get himself up to speed, and now dive into the sprinter's lane, exiting turn number 1. Big gap between these two riders right now. Alvord not taking any chances, though, as he knows that finishing speed of Pipkins, and Pipkins will concede the ride. Jamie Alvord will move into the national championship round against Sandor Delgado.
We're looking at a couple of great matchups coming on a little bit later. Our gold medal ride, that's going to be between Delgado and Alvord, and of course the bronze medal ride going to be between Chu and Pipkins.
Give those guys a nice round of applause as they come by, ladies and gentlemen. Full day of racing for everybody here. They're doing a great job right now at this phase of it. Next up is our Elite Women's Sprint Semifinal Ride 2. We have a fine issued to rider number 118, Mandy Marquardt, for a delay of start after Ride 1. Sorry, I have to announce those things, the rules.
All right, ride number 2, of course, Marquardt, the winner of ride number 1. She is up track, representing the Novo Nordisk team. Lawrence down track, representing Team Star Trek.
Marquardt taking the first ride. And so Stephanie Lawrence right now is going to try and see what she can do to affect the approach for Marquardt here. And Mandy dips underneath, and she will take first position. She's going to also lift the speed here a little bit, and let's see if Lawrence wants to challenge to take back. Lawrence is down track, and Marquardt will lift the speed one more time. So Mandy clearly wanting first wheel, and Stephanie fighting for it. But Marquardt is just going to keep lifting and lifting as she gets deeper into this race, coming up and down the track. Stephanie Lawrence now trying to figure out how to come up and over, because Marquardt is protecting that sprinter's lane. As we come into the final lap, we're entering turn number 2. Here could be the charge by the second rider, Lawrence, but Mandy Marquardt on top of a much bigger gear than Lawrence, just looking at the feet between these two women. Mandy Marquardt on top of a good gear. Lawrence not giving up, but Mandy Marquardt will go ahead and take this ride. She will move herself into the national championship rounds. Stephanie Lawrence will be into the bronze medal rides against the yet-to-be-determined competitor.
Well, next up, heat number 2. It's going to be a rematch of Schellberg, winner of ride number 1, against Jennifer Wagner. So the winner of the best 2 out of 3 from heat number 2, of course, will move on to face Mandy Marquardt in the gold medal ride. The loser moving into the bronze medal round against Stephanie Lawrence.
Schellberg having a very good ride to take ride number 1 over Wagner, so we'll see if she can repeat that feat, put herself into the national championship ride against Mandy Marquardt. I'm sure Wagner thinking about all the things we were just talking about with Pipkins and Alvord, all right, where what are the strategies going to be used to take on and avenge that loss?
Yeah, Schellberg indeed a phenomenal ride, quite honestly. That last ride, taking that long way around the top. A little bit of a different tactic than we've seen from her through the entire tournament. So one of the key things about being an athlete is being flexible, right? Like kind of you've got your game plan, plan A or plan B, but sometimes you got to scrap those and go with plan C. And to do that, you've got to be very, very quick thinking on the bike, especially in these sprints, and especially so as they're well into the last lap and they're really ramping up that speed. Little change in positioning, little change in angle coming up or down the track, and you've got to make very split-second decisions how to tweak your tactics. So very challenging part of the sport to master.
Yeah, and I think that is all the more commendable to Schellberg and her coaching program for the fact that she's been able to learn so much so quickly. over the past year. There's a lot to learn in this sport, a lot of nuances. Not everybody can even figure it out. And so Shelberg doing well. Let's see where we're coming into, though. This next bell lap. And there it is. Let's see what happens here. We're lifting our speed, and Wagner gets underneath this time. And so Shelberg now on her heels. She's going to have to recover because Wagner is pulling out the stops here. She wants to win this ride. Shelberg has a lot of ground to make up. Wagner, though, out of the saddle over the handlebar. She's trying to get as much speed as she can. Shelberg, though, is coming up strong. Shelberg's coming into the draft, up onto the hip. Wagner coming out of turn 4. Shelberg to the line, and Jennifer Wagner does take the ride just ahead of Shelberg, so we will see them one more time for the decider round.
I'll tell you, one of the things that means, Gabe, is these riders going to be a little extra tired going into whatever respective championship round that they get to, because nobody's going to a third ride yet today. These rides, they might be short, but you can see from the speed, very violent effort. So great job by Wagner to even the score. Big round of applause for these two riders. We'll see them once again a little bit later on for ride number 3.
Wagner really showing the experience there. She knew that as soon as she got underneath, she needed to commit to that effort, even though it was pretty long. We'll call that a 350-meter sprint that she just did there, but she stayed on top. And then remembering just how aggressively she got over the handlebars exiting turn number 2, just showing how much she wanted to commit because she did not want to leave it to chance. And it's a good thing that she did, because Shelberg came on strong there in the final few meters, and she really did push it. Only 0.39 seconds separating those two women at the line.
That thing he uses to warm up and stay loose before he throws it down. That thing Tony Finau uses on course between shots. Ooh, that's money. That thing Robin and I use before and after we're on the bike so we can ride harder tomorrow. That thing Erlen Holland uses before smashing it into the back of the net. That thing that's for everyone. The Hypervolt from Hyper Ice. Give your body the daily relief it's been asking for.
For the last 100 years, we've been here, while our champions have triumphed. And since day one, it has been our mission to champion each and every rider, because the bike belongs to all of us.
We champion each mile, milestone, and memory in the saddle.
We cheer just as hard for the training wheels coming off as we do our Olympic champions.
Because it's more than just a sport, it's a way of life.
We don't just champion cycling, we champion you.
There are a number of other racing opportunities for you throughout the year. August 12th and 13th, you've got the Vision GP out at the Jerry Baker Velodrome on the west side of the country. They have $11,000 worth of prize money for that weekend tournament, with the extra $1,000 going to the women. So I think you can check out thevelodrome.org, I think is your website. Is that right? Yes, thevelodrome.org is Jerry Baker Velodrome, and you can learn more about the Vision GP. And if you're in the infield, just go talk to Amara Ortela. They have the tent city over there between Boost Cycle Sport and Star Trek. If you are a Madison rider and you are here, remember that Madison National Championships are going to be at the Lexus Velodrome in November, middle of November. They're taking place. First weekend of November. I think it's the second weekend. 10 to the 13th of November.
For anyone who's ever watched a Madison here, you know, we're on a 333-meter track here in Trexlertown. Things are kind of controlled as they happen because we've got a big track spread out. You go to their velodrome. What's the length of that track?
166.
166, so just around half the distance, so half the size of this track. Imagine the chaos, the controlled chaos of a Madison under the lights, indoors, on a track half the size of this. It's practically worth going just to spectate.
It is, actually. It's really cool. When I was there last year, I had the chance of spectating from the top, and when you're standing at the top of those big turns looking down the walls towards the infield, it's really cool to see the riders coming around you and past you. They're practically perpendicular with the ground underneath them. The G-forces just gluing them to that sticky track, so it's really cool to see that, and that's why it's 50-degree banking. We'll just call that vertical. Let's just go ahead and call it vertical.
50 degrees. So what's our banking here at Trexlertown to give a comparison?
We're 30 degrees.
30 degrees. So another 20 degrees of banking. Imagine that. I mean, anyone who's ridden on these tracks, you kind of ride around a little bit of a slow speed. It's kind of daunting at the top in the turns. Only 30 degrees. So imagine another 20 degrees on top of that. There's got to be, I would imagine there's got to be kind of a minimum speed limit, right?
Yes.
If you're riding around the top of the track.
Dale always reminds you there is a minimum speed limit at the top of that track.
I'm not sure I'd like to be the one to test that. Just, you know, got to use a little bit of body language to kind of keep the bike upright, kind of lean one way or the other
it's
lean
a long
up
way
track
down.
a little bit.
It's a long way down. You don't want to test it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to test it in that manner. That's for sure.
So anyways, Madison National Championships are at the Lexus Velodrome November 10th through the 13th. Do check out LexusVelodrome.com for more information about that event. And then afterwards, we've got the Winter World Series at the Lexus Velodrome. That's happening once a month, I believe, throughout the Winter Series. So do check out the LexusVelodrome.com where you can find out about the Winter World Series. Prize money will be on offer at each of those events, so it's a great way for especially track athletes. But if you're not a track athlete, it's a great way for you to get into the sport of track cycling. All right, we're being told to get our athletes onto the track. So Jennifer Wagner and Emily Schellberg, please report to the track apron for your third ride. Oh, last bit of thing about Lexus Velodrome. They've got a bar in the infield, and it's super cool because when you're done racing, the bar is open in the infield. So definitely check out Madison National Championships and Winter World Series. Here we are at the Valley Preferred Cycling Center, though, right now. This is going to be ride number 3, 4-hour Elite Women's Sprint Tournament. Now, this is going to be good. The winner of this ride, no matter who it is, will go to the National Championship ride, and then the other rider will go to the bronze medal ride.
First up on the track, it's going to be Jennifer Wagner out of Houston, Texas, Atomic Momentum, her team. Now we've got Emily Schellberg riding out of Linthicum, Maryland for I Am, I Can, I Will, I Do, presented by Vital Performance. And once again, this is kind of a winner-take-all ride right here. Whoever wins has the opportunity to ride for a gold medal a little bit later on this evening.
Yeah, let's see what the strategies are. Look at this Wagner going hard early. She's really lifting the tempo very early, and Schellberg going to have to keep a leash on Wagner because remember, Wagner has Masters World titles in timed events, and usually those events are from a standing start. So she's got that significant acceleration in the legs underneath her. And so you can't let Wagner get too far away from you. We're lifting our speeds. We're lifting our tempos. There's your bell for 1 lap to go. And Schellberg wants to dive, but Wagner's going to dive first. Schellberg digging in. She's really committed to the move. Wagner is down in that sprinter's lane. She's got the short way around the track. Can Schellberg find a way to get into that draft and come up and over? There's that lift by Wagner into turn number 3 as we come into the final few meters. Let's make some noise deep down. This is a good ride between these two. Wagner coming out of turn number 4. Schellberg challenges, but Jennifer Wagner will take this ride. She will face Mandy Marquardt in the championship event, and Schellberg will face Stephanie Lawrence for a bronze medal.
A great ride by both of these athletes, forcing the only ride 3 we've had thus far today. Once again, Wagner, the winner. She's going to move on to face Mandy Marquardt a little bit later for the gold medal ride. Emily Schellberg will face Stephanie Lawrence for the bronze medal. So one more round of applause for 2 of our top sprinters out here, both vying for respective medals a little bit later on. What do we have next, Gabe?
We have our 17-18 men's scratch race final. 10 kilometers, should be 30 on the cards. We have a good start list here.
Yeah, a couple of riders that we've seen on some podiums throughout the weekend so far. I see Matt Amara. I see Luke Fetzer. Of course, I see Jonah Hover in the mix. Kelly Olkers, not seen him on the podium, but we've seen him riding pretty strong earlier in the Omnium. Unfortunately, had a crash that took him out of the mix. Also see Odin Thorderson, another rider who's been pretty consistent all week long thus far.
I think this race is going to be pretty interesting. You've got riders like Hover in here who have already won 2 national championships, but in this event, it's a standalone event, right? And so there may be opportunity for some of these riders to take a little bit more risk at the beginning. And I think that we've got great riders from Jerry Baker Velodrome, as you just said. We have Luke Fetzer out here, Preston I as well, and of course our riders from Detroit. And there could be somebody else in here that we just haven't spoken about yet.
That's kind of the beauty of it. You always have some names on the start list that you might not be terribly familiar with, especially at a national championship when you've got riders from all across the U.S. competing at different velodromes, different venues. So hopefully we'll see some of those names shine. At the moment, we've got all of our junior men out onto the apron coming out of the ready area. We've got some holders down on the apron ready to pitch in and do their part. So we'll have a handful of riders down on the apron. We'll have a bunch of riders up along the rail. We talked about this before, Gabe. The scratch race, kind of what's the most basic form of track racing, kind of boils down for the most part to the first rider to cross the line on the last lap. But generally speaking, is going to be the winner of your race. There sometimes can be some tweaks to that if there's a field lapping maneuver or something of that nature. But not a points race, not a snowball, not a tempo, not an elimination style race, just a good old-fashioned bike race. We just call it a scratch race here on the track.
Yeah, we will see how the dynamic in this event goes. As generally speaking, this is very familiar to any of the riders who come from a road racing background. Plenty of riders in here, though, with a lot of track racing experience, especially if you see one of the velodrome kits out there, whether that's Lexus, JB, or Edge.
All of our riders rolling down the back straight. They always start these races with a bit of a neutral start. The officials like to make sure it's kind of a fair start. Nobody has an unfair advantage or disadvantage. They'll point the gun to the sky coming out of turn 4 when they like it, and the race is officially underway.
I see Magnuson jumping there early, right from the gun. I think that was Magnuson. Yep, Magnuson is in this race. And Lewis Kopchak in the yellow sleeves for the Velo Shop, which is another local program around here. Becky Quinn is the coach for that. She also is the owner of the Velo Shop, which is a bike shop here. Carson Baker pulling through there at the front. And 78, I think, is Will Fowler. Yeah, so William Fowler also putting his nose in the wind early on in this scratch race.
Matt Amara from Team Swift bringing up the back of the bus there. Amara turned into be a pretty quality rider coming to us out of Fresno, California. That team he rides for, coached by one of the great female road sprinters of the 80s and early 90s, Laura Sharamita, a winner of multiple races around the country. In the last 10 years or so, Laura's been running this program out of the California area. I've seen them all around whenever I'm out for work on the West Coast. So a lot of experience to be gained working with a coach like Laura. So Matt out here by himself, but I'm sure has been chatting with his coach, Laura, getting some advice. She was also a very experienced track rider as well. So a lot of wisdom going into that young man's ears for these races out here.
Nice to see Kelly Olkers in the mix out there. Kelly coming from mountain biking background, but also coming from the Olkers and Symes family, which is a very deep history in our track cycling community. This is his first national championships, nice to see him representing the Team Alliance Environmental in that. He's rider number 91 out there. Benjamin McCall on the front right now. Sorry, just taking a brief pull at the front from South Carolina of the Rock Hill Velodrome. We haven't spoken too much about Rock Hill. They also do run regular race programming. It's nice to have them as part of our track community.
2 riders on the front, wasting no time. 76 from Piedmont College. That's going to be Preston I. Another rider with a very good coach kind of guiding him along the way. Olympian Jamie Carney giving him lots of advice as he's rolling that pace pretty hard right now off the front in solo fashion.
And now Jonah Hover is the one in chase. Hover wants to win this race if he can. Preston I, though, he's really flying right now. Look at this nice cadence that Preston I has for now 2 laps. Means gear selection for him is very good. We'll see how it rolls and for how long it rolls. We have a very motivated field behind, trying to bring this back. Last rider through was Christopher Rivera from the Lexus Velodrome.
A bit of an organized chase going on. Nobody too keen to let our rider from Georgia get too much of a gap. Looks like Luke Fetzer kind of swinging up. A couple riders swinging on up with him. 22 on the counter right now. Leading the charge on the front, that's Aiden Beckman out of Rancho Palos Verdes, California. A lot of West Coast riders making the trek all the way here to the East Coast to compete in our events.
Preston I now been on the front for a full kilometer as he continues to tick away at these laps. Nice cadence by him for still. And the chase, as Bill was just saying, is pretty organized and motivated. You're seeing a lot of different riders rotating through on the front, and yet the gap between them and Preston hasn't really changed. But as Preston is off the front for longer and longer, it will become much more difficult for him to continue to maintain such a slender lead over the rest.
Jonah Hover on the front representing Edge Cycling. Looks like Jonah may be feeling a little bit of pressure. He's been taking a couple of long pulls on the front. Probably a little bit of a marked rider out here. He's already won a couple of national titles so far this week, so I'm sure he would love to add. I believe this might be a 3rd one if he has the opportunity to get on the top step. So some riders may be looking at him to do a little bit extra work out there because obviously they know and recognize his strengths on the bike.
And with that, though, Preston I is reabsorbed into the bunch, and we're going to have a little bit of a reshuffling and easing of the pace as Hover rotating through there on the front one more time after Karsten Baker, I believe. And a sort of a regroup here. Right? We have actually some of the riders taking a pull through on the front right now, just briefly for a moment in time, were popped off the back, and now they've been reabsorbed. They've ridden themselves back into the bunch, and they have found themselves back into the rotation.
It's kind of an important mental aspect with racing. Every time it goes hard, you got to try and compartmentalize that pain a little bit and always remember at some point it will ease up a little bit. It's just a question of when. So you try and keep pressure on the pedals for as long as you can, and a lot of times, like you saw just a lap or 2 ago, that little slowdown happens and you're able to kind of ride back in and get just that little bit of recovery you need to kind of flip the switch and maybe turn what might be an otherwise bad moment into a better spot out there.
Yeah, we're single file right now thanks to Benjamin McCall from the Rock Hill Velodrome of the Carolina Junior Cycling Development, technically. We'll see who else is going to be motivated. Preston I with those pink shoes dancing at the front as well. Will Fowler now from JB Velodrome taking a pull briefly at the front. This race really is staying together. Preston was off the front there briefly at 15 to go right now. Brendan Leary, number 85 there, certainly one to watch in this event overall. Brendan he races a lot at the Lexus Velodrome at a pretty high level, always challenging for the different types of events, and because he gets to race Madison so much, he has a lot of awareness, situational awareness built into his track racing ability. So I'm going to keep an eye on number 85.
Interesting little factoid I'll give you for the rider kind of floating around the back of the bus there, Kelly Oakers. The bike Kelly is riding, you mentioned the family connection between the Symes and Oakers family, a rich cycling history. The bike that Oakers is on out there was actually a custom-built, custom-painted bike for Jackie Symes, his cousin. Jackie rode that to some national championships events right out here on the track. Fortunately for Kelly Oakers, they're about the same size, you know, a little shade over 6 feet tall. So pulled the bike out of his Uncle Jack's garage across the street, maybe raised the seat just a little bit, and presto, he's got a functional high-end track bike that he can ride.
There's always a little bit of magic in a bike that's already won a national championship, so good for Kelly Oakers to have the opportunity of getting to ride that bike. Luke Fetzer now on the front for Lux Cycling. We've spoken a lot about Luke during the Omniums, but just a refresher, he was challenging for stages at the Tour of Labitibi, or whatever we're calling it right now, just a few weeks ago. And Luke now in the mix here. Now this race does suit Luke, I would say, because of its proximity in rules to a criterium or just general road race. So it's really just relying on those instincts for him to get himself to the finish line.
Yeah, it definitely favors more of the endurance-based athletes. You might think, well, it's only 10 kilometers, 30 laps, but in terms of track racing, especially for juniors, that's a pretty decent length event. So a lot of riders with a little bit more endurance, maybe from the road background, have a little bit of an advantage, I'd say, out here, especially as it comes down to crunch time and the speed starts to get a little bit higher.
Looking at 10 laps to go, so we are 2/3 of the way through this event. Now this final third of this race will be crunch time for many of these athletes. This is the point in time when some of the better riders, the riders who are more confident in their abilities, have been waiting for. They haven't done too much quite yet. They are now at the point where they're going to start to really turn the screws. This is also the point where the riders who aren't feeling so great are just hoping that things stay chill until we get to the end. So let's see what happens. Let's see who has been lying in wait and who has been suffering their way to get to this point in the event.
Yeah, as many riders as we've kind of talked about so far in the last 22 laps or so, there's a lot of riders we haven't talked about yet. I'm sure some of those riders are sprinters. They've stayed hidden in the group by design, trying to save their energy for that last, well, probably lap and a half to 2 laps. That's when the speed, once that speed starts to lift, when you get under 3 laps to go, well, that's it. The speed is going to stay up. It's going to stay fast. And that's what the pure sprinters out there are really waiting for. They're hiding out, trying to conserve as much energy as they can, because they know when it gets down to the business end of the bike race, those last couple of laps, they want to have every ounce of energy they can to try and get to the line first.
Carson Baker taking a pull through there on the front, and we are getting down into very aggressive single digits, just about 2 kilometers, over 2 kilometers remaining in the event. Starting to see these riders, as Bill was just talking about, just positioning themselves, because once the train leaves the station, it can be very hard to catch it if you're not already there. That's why you're now seeing Jonah Hover put himself there. So remember, the first third of the race, Hover was active. Then we didn't see anything of him in the middle third of the event. Now here we are in the final third, and Hover reappears in the dialogue of this event.
You talk a little bit about that positioning, and again, once we get down underneath 5, 4, and certainly within 3 laps to go, positioning is so important, because once the speed really lifts at that point and it doesn't back off, it becomes much harder to maneuver around the group. You might change a couple of spots, but unless you are a pure sprinter with a big kick, you really want to be in a prime position once those laps turn down to, I would say, about 3 laps to go.
We are currently going to be looking at 5 laps, now 4 laps remaining in the contest. 4 laps to go. And Thordarson is now putting himself up near the front from Los Angeles, California, the Boost Cycle Sport program. Thordarson up near the front right behind Karsten Baker. So two athletes from California finding each other here late in the contest. And we're about to see 3 to go, Bill, which is the final kilometer of this event. We are all together right now. Nobody able to get away from the event. And the wind-up now begins with 3 laps to go.
Karsten Baker from Velo Track cycling out of Danville, California on the point. Almost a full lap pull for that rider right now. Kind of a dangerous game to play this late in the race. A little hard to recover from that type of effort so late. Not sure what his tactic is, but Gabe, right now, they are going to see 2 laps to go. Make some noise, T-Town, 2 to go.
2 to go, and Orden Thordarson now jumping up and over into that sprinter's lane, and with a lap and a half to go, we see Luke Fetzer getting into the mix. There's still time for shifts in the overall, though, but Thordarson really digging in here as we come around turn number 4. Let's make some noise, T-Town, come on. This is 1 lap to go for this final lap. Thordarson on the front right now. Fetzer is there, and Jonah Hover coming up and over the top from the middle to the front. Jonah Hover digging in, turning on the afterburners as he enters into turn number 3. The rest of the field unable to hold the pace behind your next national champion, Jonah Hover at the line, Fetzer for silver, and Preston I for the bronze on the line.
What a speedy finale. Hover with an amazing turn of speed on the last lap, coming from more than halfway back in the field, just over the top, straight across the front. Nobody with a chance to catch his wheel following the slipstream. So Jonah Hover, your new 17-18 men's scratch race national champion.
Good ride there by Odin Thordarson, actually, to really just take it from the front. He's putting himself out there. You're definitely not going to win the bike race if you don't take some chances. And so, nice ride by he and Karsten Baker to give it a go.
Big hats off as well to Luke Fetzer. Fetzer forced into the lead-out roll from turn number 2 on the last lap. Did a great job to hold off the rest of the field. And, of course, our Piedmont rider, Preston I, coming strong to take the bronze medal.
Christopher Riviera and Brendan Leary, both from Detroit, in 4th and 5th. So they got themselves up near the front of the event, just off podium position here today in our national championship ride. A lot of riders coming into the infield, so keep your heads up, everybody.
Well, Gabe, seems like we're at that point of the night. We're going to start riding for some medals in our sprint competition. Long day of heats, qualifying rounds, all sorts of stuff. But now it all boils down to this. Our first ride for our bronze medal. We're going to see Mr. Andrew Chu going up against Barack Pipkins. Chu rolling up on the track, first rider up. Pipkins making his way up. A couple of Edge cycling teammates doing battle. Once again, this is best 2 out of 3 rides. The winner will be your bronze medalist in the national championships.
This matchup will be very even because of so many of the things that we've already spoken about throughout the day. But just to refresh, these guys are teammates. They are training partners. And so they know not only each other's strengths, but their weaknesses. So let's watch what strategies will be. Pipkins started behind. He then wanted to take lower and first position. He has successfully done so. So Chu is going to reorganize himself here. Pipkins has shown that he has this tremendous finishing speed. Let's see if Chu has a strategy to counter that strength of Pipkins. Chu giving a very long leash here, which is forcing a lot of peripheral vision on himself there. He has to maintain forward position. There's your bell for 1 lap to go. Chu coming into the draft and then coming up and over. Sort of a slow motion up and over. We'll see if Pipkins can recover from it. Chu has made the pass as he's coming into turn number 2. He's now going to occupy the sprint lane and cut over those handlebars nice and aggressively into turn number 3 and into 4. Here comes Pipkins coming late on the ride. Chu checking the shoulder, but Andrew Chu will take this ride for 1-0 over Barack Pipkins. This is a best 2 out of 3, of course, and so that was ride number 1. Andrew Chu taking that first ride sets the precedent there. We will see both of those gentlemen back on track here shortly for their second ride. First rider to win twice in the matchups will be given the bronze medal.
Next up, we've got ride number 1 for the final for the gold medal. The winner of the best of 2 of 3 will be crowned the national champion. Sandor Delgado is the rider out of Miami, Florida, bib number 19. The white and black helmet with the stars on the right sleeve of his skin suit, the first rider up on the track. And of course, the black laser helmet, the red edge cycling team skin suit, that's your defending national champion, Jamie Alvord.
We're rolling. This is the first ride of the national championship ride. Alvord, your defending national champion. Delgado looking to take this championship from Alvord here. Delgado has had an absolutely stellar tournament so far today. Fastest qualifier and undefeated to get to this point. Delgado in that black kit, first wheel right now. Up at the rail so that he only has to check one side. Alvord, pretty aggressive in this event. Also knows how to play tactics in a way that he can suss out the opponent's strategy. Also very aggressive at getting into the head of the opponent. Half of this race is physical. The other half is mentality and mental fortitude. There's your bell for 1 to go. Delgado now lifting that speed. Alvord is going to try to match it. Alvord is protecting down track, which means Delgado has to come up and around. Long way around for Delgado. Can he do it? Alvord, one of the fastest men in America right now. Look at the speed out of turn number 2 into 3 right now. And Alvord is first position coming out of turn number 4. Delgado's trying to get there, and Jamie Alvord will take ride number 1 ahead of Sandor Delgado. It's a nice ride there by both of those gentlemen. Give them a nice round of applause as they come by you in the stands here today. Jamie Alvord, international champion, and Sandor Delgado. Stephanie Lawrence, let me see what's happening here. Emily Schellberg will not contest for the bronze medal, which means that Stephanie Lawrence, ladies and gentlemen, is your bronze medalist at U.S. National Championships. Congratulations, Stephanie. And just the explainer for anybody that needs to know, just in case, a presentation has to occur at the line by one of the riders if their opponent does not wish to race for any reason. So not able to race, excuse me. So Schellberg unable to race. And so Lawrence presenting at the line. showing that she is able to race. Schelberg stating she is sick, which we can understand. We've been here a long time.
Well, with that, we will move into ride number 1 for our gold medal. Mandy Marquardt, the defending national champion in the sprint competition, is going to face off ride number 1 against Jennifer Wagner out of Houston, Texas.
National championship on the line here. Mandy Marquardt in the blue and yellow. Jennifer Wagner in the atomic kit, that pinstripe colorful kit. Both these women very fast in their own right, of course, and this is not the first time these two have faced each other in this matchup. Last year, these two faced each other again. And Marquardt is familiar with the tactics of Wagner. Wagner's going to try to go for it, though. She's dropping down track. Mandy shuts the door. Looks like she came back up a little bit. Wagner's going to try to challenge, though. Here's that belt for 1 lap to go. Marquardt checking back and forth, back and forth. The sprint is not yet started until Mandy's looking forward the whole time. And we're coming into turn number 2. And there's that lift. Out of the saddle is Mandy Marquardt, and Wagner matches it. So very close coming into turn 3, entering into turn number 4. Marquardt going to stay on the effort. Harris giving her the all clear, and Mandy Marquardt will take ride number 1 over Jennifer Wagner.
So up next, we have a quick award ceremony for our junior women and junior men scratch race. That allows our sprinters a little time to recover before we move on to the second ride. So anyone who wants to join us down here trackside, we are going to move over to our awards ceremony area and call to the podium our 17-18 women's scratch race champions, as well as our 17 and 18 men scratch race champions.
Scratch race podiums coming right up. So looking for all 3 of our women, and then the top 3 from our men.
So we've got our 3 junior women. They're ready for their podium. We'd love to get our 3 junior men as well. And of course, that's going to be Preston I, Luke Fetzer, and Jonah Hover. If you gentlemen would present yourselves over here at the awards presentation area. presentation area. Like to try and get that underway along with our junior women as soon as possible here. The three men we're looking for, of course, Jonah Hover, Luke Fetzer, Preston I.
All right, we are all here. We are checked in. Let's get ready to go for your women's scratch race final. In the bronze medal position from Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, representing Adapt Cycling, please welcome Claire Kudlata. Woo! From Center Valley, Pennsylvania, representing Edge Cycling, please welcome silver medalist Lucy Speranza. And from Carson, California, representing Sirius Cycling, your national champion is Chloe Patrick.